Salve discipuli. Hello, students. So today we're going to be going through the vocabulary for stage 1 of the Cambridge Latin course. I will have this slide available separate from the video, so if you are taking notes and I move too fast through one slide, you'll be able to go back and take a look at the slides and copy those down at your own pace. Please do make sure you are taking notes on the vocabulary in your Latin notebook or Latin binder, wherever you're taking your Latin notes. So this is the vocabulary for stage 1, Introduction into Cambridge Latin course. Hopefully by this time we have our Cambridge Elevate codes, and I've sent those out, and I have a video walkthrough in the works. This will be posted at a future time, so I don't know where we'll be at by the time this is posted, but hopefully that will be the case, and we can start working with the textbook online. But in the meantime, I've got a nice little PowerPoint or Google Slides for you with the vocabulary. So let's get started. All right. So, stage 1 vocabulary. Before we get started, again, I know some of you might be new to Latin this year. Some of you had Latin in 6th grade with Magister Cummings, but even if you had Latin last year, this part might be a little bit new to you. Latin nouns and verbs are going to be listed with multiple forms, and I'll kind of explain that once we start seeing the words. This is very important. Eventually. Latin is a language that has different endings for words depending on what they're doing in the sentence. So that means that nouns and verbs will have a lot of different options for their endings. We're going to ease you into that very slowly, so don't freak out about that part. But that is why we have multiple forms listed for the nouns and the verbs, because those forms are going to be very important for us later on. And the sooner we can kind of start getting the hang of that, the better. Also, this is how Latin words are listed in a Latin dictionary. So it's just, again, it's a good skill to get used to seeing Latin words listed in this way. I will explain kind of the different parts of each word very briefly. But again, you don't really have to worry about all the different parts until a bit later on. But that is why. Please take notes with all of the forms. I'm going to ask that you start learning them in that way. So please make sure when you take notes, you get all of the forms that are listed. It will be very useful to you in the long run if you can start doing that as early as possible. As I said, really quick overview of what these things are. Nouns, there's going to have 2 forms for nouns, and then there will be a letter in parentheses. The letter won't always be in parentheses, but there will be a letter after the 2 noun forms. And that gives you the noun's grammatical gender. Not going to get too much into this, but basically every noun in Latin is going to have a grammatical gender, either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Lots of languages do this. Spanish does this, French, Italian, German do this. English just is one that doesn't, so we're not used to that. But keep in mind, grammatical gender doesn't always function the way we kind of typically think of gender. Masculine doesn't necessarily mean boy, feminine doesn't necessarily mean girl, and neuter just means neutral. It's neither one nor the other. It's just a kind of third bonus option. So nouns will always have one of these grammatical genders, and there will either be an M, an F, or an N next to it to tell you which one. This becomes very important once we start learning adjectives eventually down the road. So again, good to start learning it now so that you don't have to learn it later. Some nouns can be masculine or feminine. Not very many are like that. We do have one, though, in this lesson that can be either masculine or feminine, so we'll get to that. All right. Our first word is actually the one that I mentioned that is going to be either masculine or feminine. This is one of the few cases in which the grammatical gender of the noun will actually depend on the gender of the noun. So our first word is canis. And I know we've got 2 forms listed here and they're both the same. There's a reason for that you'll learn eventually, but for now, just make sure you learn both forms. Canis, masculine, feminine. That's usually how I like to say it out loud in my head to help me remember the forms. But this first form listed is the one we're going to focus on to start, so canis. This is where we get the word canine from in English. It is our Latin word for dog. All right, our next noun, coquus. I'm also going to be giving pauses for you to repeat after me. I'm going to pretend like you're all in my classroom sitting here and repeating after me, and I can hear your voices. It's very sad that I can't, but for now we're going to pretend. Then when we come back to the classroom, this will be a little bit better. But coquus, coqui, masculine. This particular word is masculine. This is our word for a cook. It's kind of similar to our word for a cook. Coquus, cook. It sounds similar, so hopefully that can help you remember this one. Est. This is technically a verb form, and it does technically have multiple forms in its dictionary listing, but it's kind of an irregular verb, so I'm just giving you this one form to start to simplify things, because this is a very common verb, and this form in particular is going to be very, very common. You're going to see this a lot. So est is going to be our Latin word for is. It's our verb for a state of being. You're going to see this all the time at the beginning. So this is a very important word to know. Est means is. If you speak any other language, this is very similar to some other languages. So, and I don't have a picture for that one because it's very difficult to find a picture that represents is. So our next word, philia, filii, feminine. Philia, filii, remember that long I is that E sound and that AE is that I sound from our pronunciation video. This is our Latin word for daughter. And this is feminine. This is a case where logically it kind of makes sense that the word for daughter is a feminine word. And that does happen a lot when you're referring to people in Latin words. It doesn't always work that way with nouns, but with words relating to people, the grammatical gender often matches the gender of the person. This is our word for daughter. Filius, filii, masculine. Now this second form is a little weird because there's two I's right next to each other. The first I is a short I, the second I is a long I, and you do pronounce them separately. Filii, filii. So that's kind of a hard one to get used to, but filius, if you notice, looks very similar to our last word, philia. This A ending is very commonly a feminine ending. This US ending is very commonly a masculine ending. So start keeping an eye out for those kinds of patterns with Latin words. So philia, feminine, means daughter. Filius, masculine, is going to be our word for son. Hortus, horti, masculine. Again, we've got that US ending and it is a masculine word. Again, US is usually going to be a masculine ending. This is our Latin word for garden. We get the word in English horticulture from this, which is having to do with gardening and stuff like that. So, in plus the ablative. Oh, that's a scary word. Don't worry too much about that. That's going to be important later on. This just means that this preposition, in is a preposition in Latin, is going to go with a specific type of noun endings that we're going to learn much later on. Again, it's good to know this now. So in means in. One of the easiest Latin words you'll ever learn. Hopefully you can remember that one. All right. This is a verb, and most Latin verbs will have 4 forms listed like this. These first 2 are going to be the ones that are going to be most important to us throughout the course of 7th and 8th grade Latin. We'll get a little bit into this 3rd form in 8th grade, I believe. This 4th form you're not going to see until much later on in Latin. But again, it's very helpful to learn all these forms at the beginning so that in 2 years, if you're continuing on in Latin in high school, all of a sudden you're like, wait, but I learned all my verbs one way, now I have to relearn them. So I apologize if it seems like I'm asking a lot of you right now, but I promise, It's going to help you out in the long run. So, laboro, laborare, laboravi, laboratum. This is where we get the word labor from. It means to work. This is our verb to work. And again, all these forms will get to what they do eventually. Mater, matris, feminine. This is where we get words like matriarchy. This is our Latin word for mother. A matriarchy is a society that is dominated by women. Pater, patris, masculine. Opposite of mater, this is our word for father. It's where the word patriarchy comes from. Patriarchy is a society dominated by men. Another verb here with those 4 separate parts. Sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessum. Now this third one has that long E, so do try and remember that that's an A sound versus all the other E's are more of an E. So sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessum. Slightly different. You'll get the hang of it eventually. This is where we get the word sedentary from. If someone is sedentary, it means they sit around all day. It means to sit. It's our verb to sit. Servus, servi, masculine. This is where we get the word like server from. It's our Latin word for slave. The ancient Romans did in fact have slaves. So we are going to see in our Cambridge Latin course, in the stories, there is a very entertaining slave character who we're going to be reading lots about. And our last word for today, via, vi, feminine. This is our word for street, road, or way, right? They all are essentially synonyms for each other. It can mean any of these 3 things, a street, a road, or a way. All right, and those are all of our words for stage 1 of the Cambridge Latin course. So again, make sure you have all these vocab words written down in your notes. We're going to be doing some practice with these words this week. And then, yeah, we're going to get to see them in action in some stories and some sentences next week. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in our Zoom meeting. Walete discipuli. Goodbye.